You learned to read a room before you learned long division. You knew which version of someone was walking through the door just by the sound of their footsteps. Not because you were gifted, because you had to be. That's what going through too much does. It doesn't just leave scars, it builds something. And what it builds is more complicated than most people realize. Most people's nervous systems operate from a calm baseline. Yours doesn't. When you endure prolonged stress or hardship early enough, your brain recalibrates around it. Your amygdala, the brain's threat detector, never gets the memo that the danger passed. Researchers describe this as hypervigilance, your nervous system permanently scanning, not because something is wrong with you, because something was wrong around you. For long enough that your brain decided staying alert is safer than relaxing. The result? You notice things others walk right past. The tension in someone's voice they're trying to hide. The smile that's working hard but not quite reaching the eyes. The shift in a room's energy before anyone said a word. You didn't develop this. You survived into it. And it costs you. You're exhausted in spaces others find easy. You can't just relax at a party. You can't turn it off because your nervous system doesn't have an off switch. It only has degrees of alert. But here's what nobody tells you about that wiring. You probably think what you went through only took from you. It gave you something too. A study published in Child Abuse and Neglect found that adults who experienced childhood hardship scored significantly higher on empathy than those who didn't. Not slightly higher, significantly. The harder the experience, the higher the empathy. Because suffering makes you fluent in suffering. You understand pain in a language most people never learn. But why does that feel more like a burden than a gift? Because you don't just understand people's pain, you feel it. Someone tells you they're fine, you already knew they weren't before they opened their mouth. You walk into a room and pick up the emotional temperature in seconds, not as a skill you practiced, as a reflex you developed. And here's what happens next. You become the safe person, the one people call at 2 a.m., the one who shows up, the one who never asks anyone to show up for them back. Not because you volunteered, because they could sense you'd understand. You didn't sign up for that job. You were drafted. And while you're busy being everyone's anchor, you're exhausted in a way that's hard to explain to people whose nervous systems never had to work this hard just to feel normal. That's not weakness. That's what happens when someone is trained by hardship to carry what others can't. Psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun spent decades studying people who endured the worst. What they found surprised everyone. They called it post-traumatic growth. Adversity doesn't just damage people. In many cases, it builds capabilities that comfort could never create. Personal strength that isn't performed. You don't talk about what you've been through. You just handle things in a way others can't explain. Relationships with actual depth. An appreciation for life that people who've never lost anything simply don't have access to. A 2024 study confirmed it. The more adversity someone faced, the greater their capacity for growth. But only when they processed it, not buried it, not performed strength over it. The people who went through the most and came out the other side, they didn't come out unchanged, they came out clearer. Not everything happens for a reason. What you went through wasn't fair. It wasn't part of a plan, it just happened. But you are not obligated to let it define the ceiling of your life. 3 things worth considering. First, recognize hypervigilance for what it is, a protection system, not a personality. You can acknowledge what it did for you and still ask it to stand down in spaces that are actually safe. Second, your empathy is a resource, not a liability, but resources deplete. You are allowed to decide who gets access to yours. Third, let the growth be real, not performed toughness, not "I'm fine, I went through worse." Actual integration of what you survived. You don't have to be grateful for what you went through, but you're allowed to own what it made you. Going through too much leaves a mark. That part is true, but it also leaves a map of how pain moves, how people break, how resilience gets built when there's no other option. You didn't get the easy path, but you got something the easy path can't give. The ability to understand, in your bones, what it means to survive. That's not nothing. That's rare. If this resonated with you, you're gonna love our next video. Please like, share, and click subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.